Inquiring minds want to know.
I want to know.
Hey everybody, it's Jeff Slick from the McGuire team, and we're here in the studio with our first episode of Inquiring Minds with the Moving Bucksmont team. So in the studio we have today Mr. John Trigg, a fellow team member here, an awesome and amazing experienced realtor, and my team leader, Mr. Phil Voorhees.
Hey, Jeff.
Hey guys, how you doing today?
Good.
Doing
Excited?
great. Absolutely.
All right. Well, we got some questions in here from our fearless clients, and we're going to have a good time with it. So we're going to educate people and answer some basic questions. So, John, I'm going to start with you, buddy. Okay?
Yeah.
So we got this question from Susie in North Wales. She says, my best friend has her license and I was thinking about working with her. Why should I work with you?
Yeah, great question. I actually get this question quite a bit. I think anybody who's been doing this business longer than, a couple of months probably runs into something similar, whether it's a best friend or a relative or, somebody, a coworker they work with. The process of buying a house is a deeply personal and individual process. It can get very stressful at times for some people. It can get scary. It can be intimidating. You want to work with somebody who understands the process and has been through it many times before. That's the first thing, because you want someone who knows what they're doing to help hold your hand and take you along the way. But more than that, when you're talking about family, friends, coworkers, even best friend, whatever it is, there are things you're going to discuss. There's things that you're going to reveal, things you're going to talk about that your best friend may know a lot about you, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they know what you have in the bank. It doesn't mean they know what your credit score is. Your closest friends and family members don't always necessarily know what your financial picture looks like. And that can get really uncomfortable because some of those discussions that we have are really personal in nature. There's times when I have to go back to my buyer and say, listen, I don't know how, I don't know what, and I don't know, how we're going to go about this, but I need you to come up with another $2,000 or $3,000. We just have to do it. So let's start tapping resources and figure that out. If you're working with your best friend, that's a really uncomfortable conversation. Friends have a hard enough time borrowing $20, right? Imagine you have to go back to your best friend and say, I need $5,000 because you just don't have enough. I need you to pay off some debt because your credit score is falling below threshold. Those are really uncomfortable conversations, and they can affect a friendship. You can destroy that relationship quickly. And I've seen friendships and even families get slightly fractured through this process. So while it's great that you want to help out your best friend, it's great that you want to get them some of the experience and the education in the business. Your best bet is to separate those two things. Family and friends are different than, home and house and financials, right? You want to work with a professional who's going to be able to see all that and walk you through those processes.
Yeah, and you have the experience and the resources to do that for them. All right.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Sometimes family gets in the way and that relationship gets in the way of that success.
Well, you let's say you find a beautiful house that's just, a couple percentage points higher than where you had planned on being. The payment is just a bit stretching. If you're working with family, your family's going to be the first person to tell you that's a little expensive. That's a little bit too high. Maybe you should look for something a little bit cheaper. And it becomes uncomfortable because that could be your dream home. And the same thing goes for a best friend. Your best friend should be looking out for your best interests, but your best interests sometimes are served outside of that relationship.
Like that. That's very good. Phil, anything to add to that? Why?
Yeah, no, I think the hardest part personally is the debt. I mean, John hit on that. Talking finances and what you owe and what you actually have in the account is one thing, but to talk about what you owe someone or multiple people, that's when it really, really gets a little bit hairy and people don't want to necessarily share that information. And if you're not sharing that information with your agent, how well is your agent going to be able to work for you if they don't fully understand your situation?
Yeah, and you got to really be ready to disclose to your lender too, because it goes through the wash with the underwriter at the end of the day. So.
At the end of the day, like you said, everything's going to come out. but you don't necessarily want your best friends or your family or your coworkers seeing any of your dirty laundry. We all like to be clean in front of them, right?
Absolutely. That student loan debt or that car default,
Yeah,
all that stuff
the
comes
credit
out.
card you didn't pay that came
Yeah.
after you for a judgment. I mean, those are embarrassing things. So
Yeah.
having someone who's completely separate from that relationship that's transactional is a big help. Because my goal when I represent somebody, my goal is to financially protect them. We're fiduciaries in the state of Pennsylvania. That's the law. That's not a hope. That's not a wish or a dream. That's the law. So I have to look out for their best interest. But it's easy for people to, if they're not directly related to me or not somebody I hang out with on the side or spend a lot of time with, it's very easy for them to open up and tell me what's going on. And I look at it from a business perspective. How do I fix this situation? How do I make this better? How can I move this in a way that best suits this person's best interests?
Yeah, I love it. It's problem solving and objectivity at the same time. Yeah,
absolutely.
Love it. Now I'm going to jump over to Phil. So we got another question. So this is from Steve in Harleysville. Phil, will you be able to walk me through the home buying process?
Oh my gosh, yeah. So this is I get this a lot, and majority with first-time home buyers. Today's market, or what they've been dealing with in the past 2 years, is already kind of scary enough to add in all the new guidelines, everything that changes with that. So I'm hearing buyers left and right not jump in because they're scared of the process. Or they're not actually buying homes because they don't understand the process. It gets too stressful for they're going to actually jump in and jump out so fast because people aren't taking the time to educate. And that's something that we do here. Every agent on our team is so well at doing that and sitting them down and explaining the whole process. So we actually have a buyer consultation packet. You get to walk home with that. That will bring you from the point where we're sitting down today to the point where you're owning your house. And now we're talking about, hey, what contractors do you need to maybe update your kitchen or bathrooms, whatever you need. We have every person for that. But we're going to walk you through every step before you start it so that when you do start it, you understand it and you get to enjoy it. Because this shouldn't be the biggest and most scariest thing that you ever do in your life. But you hear that all the time. And it's because they don't understand the process. And when you understand something, you enjoy something. And that's what we're going to do for you. So we're going to educate you throughout the whole entire process, get you to understand each step. And then parts that you don't understand, we're not going to make you think or make you feel like you're an idiot. We're going to go even more in depth because each situation is very unique. And we're going to take that time to really educate you, show you, and have fun with you. I mean, this is a huge part of your life. So let's have fun with it. And first part comes to understanding it.
It should be a fun process. Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And Phil, I'm going to ask you to slide a little closer to John. There you go. Get you in frame a little bit better. And then, John, do you have anything to add on to that?
Yeah, I mean, buying your house, whether it's your first house, your second house, or your 10th house, it should be, every single time, it should be an amazing experience, a learning experience. One of the first things that I tell people when I sit down with a new buyer is you're not supposed to know anything that we're going to talk about today. So I'm hoping you're coming from a position of humility and thinking, I don't know what I should know, but I'm going to learn it through the course of this process. So they start out on that even level. Nobody's supposed to know how to do this except for the experts. It's kind of like anything else that's a high level type of experience. You don't know it until you're taught it, and then you practice it, and then you learn it, and then you become an expert at it. So the experience itself is supposed to be fun. It's supposed to be educational. It's supposed to be learning, and it should be something that you take with you forever. There was a statistic out a couple of years ago that the National Association of Realtors had. 79% of people that bought a house did not use the same realtor the second time they went to buy a house.
Good stuff.
What that tells me is that there's a lot of people out there that are not doing these steps in the beginning. They're basically opening doors and putting an offer out on paper. And our job is so much more in depth than that. We're not just people who open doors, right? A doorman does that at a hotel in the city. That's not what we do. We go a lot further. We're going to explain the process. So it is important that you work with somebody who's willing to educate you through the course of the process. And that's one of the things that we train on every single week without fail.
We're absolutely not models. We're not there to go, here's the kitchen,
Well,
here's the
let's be
bedroom.
fair. Technically, we are also models.
Okay, all right, I'll go with it. But we are going to educate you along the way. You know, start with good foundation and work your way up, you know.
Absolutely.
Educate you along the way. And we do, as a team, do weekly education from every topic in real estate so that we're refreshed, constantly doing not continuing education formally, but as a team, what's really going on with the pulse of the market and what's going on with the latest rules and regulations that come out infrequently along the way. And so there's going to be changes.
It changes every year.
Yeah.
There's a new change every year. And if people aren't being kept up with their education, they're not doing their continuing education. They're not learning the new, like this year on July 1st, we had a new appraisal process that kicked in. That changed the valuation on houses across the board, especially where we are. We have a lot of Cape Cod splits and buy levels. So if the agents aren't keeping up with their education, if they're not doing what they should do, we spent hours going over this stuff, hours learning it, studying it, figuring it out, and applying it. So we're better equipped to manage those things that come up. Those agents that are out there and those buyers that are working with those agents who don't know what these changes are in for a really rude awakening when it comes to the actual valuation on the house when they try to get that loan. Or on the other side, if they're trying to sell their house, they're going to get a nasty surprise when it comes to the appraisal on the house.
Darn right. Yeah, absolutely. Unless it's cash, it's got to appraise. So, yeah, big deal. Yeah. Guys, thanks so much. Any parting words for today?
I think if we can get people to keep sending these questions in, these are great because a lot of these are questions that people think about asking, but they sometimes don't because of that whole thought process. I should know this. I should, maybe these are people who have been in business for 5, 10, or 15 years, and they think they should know what to ask. You're not supposed to know what to ask. Every single question is a great question. There's no such thing as a bad one. Every question is a great question. There's things that we're gonna help you with, and we're gonna generate more questions along the way. So if people are watching this, send us in the questions, whether you put them in the comments down below or you email us directly. We're gonna do this every week.
That's a great point there. So instead of necessarily just waiting, because that's what we had last week with this to answer, give us a call. Call myself, call John, or call Jeff anytime. Shoot us a text. At the end of this, we'll always have our numbers and everything in here. But we don't have to wait until the next week to have these types of conversations. So call us, let's chat, and let's see what we can do for you.
That's awesome. Great stuff, guys. Yeah, it's the best thing to do is always ask question. If we don't have the answer, guess what? We're going to go find it for you and get you to the end result, which is really important. Your happiness and your home buying goals. So thanks to Phil and to John for some great answers today. And thanks for joining us today. Oh, yeah. Thanks, guys. My pleasure. And thanks for joining us on Inquiring Minds with MovingBucksmont.com.
For people with inquiring minds.
Like me.